call me a fair trade to wear a ting day. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Game Skates today. And only today, we are here to do something fun. And that is going to be make one major change for Sonic games. So I thought this was a fun idea because actually, to be fair, I don't want to take full credit for this. I saw a tweet. I don't remember who tweeted it, but somebody tweeted something along the lines of like, what would you change about your favorite Sonic game? So I figured we'd just do like a fun video where like I kind of just go over some of my favorite Sonic games, maybe some that I don't really like too much, and just make one change. But that's the rule. We can only make one. This isn't, hey, revamp the entire game and fix everything. This is, what is the one change? If they let you in the lab, you know, they're like, hey, we're re-releasing this. You get to make one change, Fidel, or you guys in the comments, of course, let me know what you would change. What would you do? And of course, make sure to subscribe to your boy, support the content, and lock in. Let us get to 80K subscribers. Come on. All right. Now, this isn't going to be every game in the series. It's kind of going to be ones that I actually just would like to make a change to or think about. Like, first thing actually that comes to mind is the classic games, right? And funny enough, like the big change to the classic games are kind of like done already. Like I think of Sonic Origins, where it's like, all right, well, they have widescreen now. They have the drop dash. You added, you know, Knuckles and, you know, Tails or other characters playable in the different classics. Like they kind of mitigated most of my things for the classic. I guess maybe I would get rid of like Marble Zone, and maybe in Sonic CD I would get rid of all the bumpers everywhere, you know. But I think with the classic games, they literally have made the change I would make to them. I'm looking at a list I got here. Let's talk about Sonic Advance, right? Because I actually would make a specific change to each Sonic Advance game, right? So for Sonic Advance 1, I would widen the camera. This kind of applies to all of them, but if there was one change I could make to Sonic Advance, it would be to widen the camera, because that's something we've seen like a lot of fan games and, you know, modders and people do of their own sake, you know, just like make the camera wider. Because I genuinely feel like half the problem with the bottomless pit issue with the advanced games is the fact that like you really can't see much away from you. Now I get it, it was on the Game Boy. The Game Boy was like a small screen, and having it maybe zoomed out would have been like, maybe Sonic is too small. But now that we have modern consoles, if I was able to change something, I would make at least Sonic Advance 1 screen, you know, wider. With Sonic Advance 2, it's a game I love, near and dear to my heart, but my biggest flaw with that game are the bosses. I hate the bosses. One, they're all the same, where you're all running, and it's frustrating. You know, you just get hit so many times. The way they're designed is kind of flawed, you know. And like I guess the change I don't know what exactly I would make for the change. Maybe I would make some, you know, in place, some, you know, a little bit easier than others, but I would just fix up the bosses for Sonic Advance. That's like legit my only flaw with that game. And Sonic Advance 3, now I really love Sonic Advance 3. I guess my one change would be like maybe making it more clear when like a partner ability is, you know, cool to use, right? Because I feel like the partner abilities are like extremely optional in that game. But I feel like I would have liked some emphasis of like, hey, this one does this, or hey, yeah, you might want to use this one here, you know. And I know you don't want to come off too handily, but even like a little sign that pops up like near a spot where you can use a character ability and stuff. Like, I think that's like the thing. It's like, it's such a cool idea and concept that like it's something that I would like to see, you know, pushed more and like have me think about more and play more and experiment with more. Like, what if they had special stages that like required you to use certain character team-ups? Like, that would have been awesome. I'd love to see that in a re-release. Oh, Sonic Adventure, interesting. See, it makes it almost hard that you can only make one change, because I can't go and be like, ooh, do this, do this, do this. See, the realistic change would be Big's campaign, right? I would make it so that, you know, Big, I know how to do it now, you know, over the years. It's not actually hard. It's easier than you think. It's like I think you just have to like hold left for a bit, you know, and then they grab it and then like you spin it. It's pretty simple. I think guidance, I'm not gonna lie to you, I think that is the biggest change realistically I would make to Adventure, because I adore Adventure. I think it's one of my favorites in the series, but I would make the guidance a little bit more clear. Like, there's a lot of times where like you don't know where to go, or, you know, they give a vague hint, or sometimes you kind of get lost, which I think is okay sometimes to get lost in some games. It makes you know, appreciate the world. But I feel like guidance, you know, whether it's like telling you how to do the fishing stuff, or telling you, you know, where you have to get this piece or this thing, like that would help a little bit. But again, in a good way. I don't have too many issues I have with Advance that I'd make a major change. I really do think it would be either big or, you know, some more guidance. Now, Sonic Adventure 2, a game I hold near and dear to my heart, and a lot of us do. And I feel like this is a game, when I think of how much I would change, there's a lot. But there is, if I really were to think about it, it would boil down to two changes that I would debate between. One, I would fix the emerald tracker, right? For knuckle stages, like I would make it so that like, you know, you could find them in any order and the blinker goes off. Cause like that happens in Sonic Adventure 1. I really don't know why they made the change in Sonic Adventure 2 to have it be one at a time. I feel like that's honestly what makes them so frustrating, is the fact that like you could sometimes, you know, be aiming for a stage for a long time because you're looking for one specific emerald that's blinking on the tracker, instead of having it be like, well, if I'm always looking through the stage, at some point that tracker is gonna ring and I'm gonna be damn near something. Or I do think, more importantly, to be frankly honest with you, I think the mech stages are the big thing I would change. I don't know how I would do it. I think I would make the mech maybe faster. I would restructure the level, you know, the ways the levels are. But yeah, I think the slowest part of the game are the mech stage. I'm not saying they're bad. I enjoy, you know, some shoot 'em ups, but a little bit more arcadiness with how like they handle maybe combos, a little bit more speed in the movement would have been appreciated. And that's like, if they're like, Fidel, make the change, do it right here, right now, you carry. I would probably say like, guys, the mech stages, we gotta revamp something here. We gotta make these more dynamic, more fun, more, you know, grandiose. That would be the big thing. Also, I hope you guys are doing this alongside me and picking your one changes you'd make. Here's another fun one: Sonic Riders. I honestly, you know, for free riders, you know, obviously, you know, I make controllers support zero gravity. Maybe I would add a regular drift instead of like the weird turn they have. But I think my biggest change I think I would make to OG Riders is probably the losing gas mechanic. Because here's the thing about OG Riders, is it's a game that now that I've grown up and I play now, I could appreciate, and I'll barely, you know, lose gas. I'll typically like, you know, blaze through levels. But I think that is the biggest flaw with the game's difficulties. I think a lot of people have trouble learning it, and therefore they end up, you know, running around instead of being on the board a lot of the time because they're not able to do the drift properly, you know, or they don't know how to manage their boost properly, right? I feel like, now granted, that's part of the system a little bit, but I would have just revamped that whole thing. Been like, you know what, like, let's change this whole, you know, losing air mechanic, because it's clear no one is really grasping it. I think that's the thing, is it's obviously, you know, for hardcore players, it's something that's awesome. And like, no way, it's part of it. But I think if I were to think of a change that would help out a lot of people, it would probably be that. It would be that, or like an actual proper tutorial, because the game doesn't really teach you anything. It kind of just throws you in and expects you to learn on your own. But yeah, I think that's the big thing I would change for that game. It would probably be like the whole pit stop gas station thing. Oh God, Sonic Heroes, man. Oh, where do I even begin? No, okay. To be fair, I genuinely mean this when I say like there's a lot of changes I would make to Sonic Heroes, and it's hard to think of one, because at the top of my head I think of like, oh God, I gotta do 4 stories of this to get the true ending. Man, one change is not enough. It really is not enough, because I have a lot of flaws with Sonic Heroes. But I guess if I was really like tasked to change only one thing, I was only allowed to change one thing, it would probably be the physics, right? Because I think that's one of the biggest flaws of the game, is the physics. You know, sometimes you'll be on rail grinds and like they don't work hella properly, or sometimes you're just a little bit too slippery, you fall off shit easier, right? Or like, you know, the bumpers don't really work in the bingo highway levels. Like, there's a lot of things when it comes to the physics of the game that drive me crazy when I play it. So yeah, I would say that would be the #1 change. But again, I do hope you know I have a laundry list. You know, I don't even know which one I would pick. Would I pick restructuring the story so that maybe certain characters have certain levels instead of all of them going through the entire story 4 times? You know, would I change the story? But I guess if I could only make the one, it would be the physics. Shadow the Hedgehog. Oh shit. Okay, I actually have a clear thing in my mind of what I would do to Shadow the Hedgehog. If they're like, if I don't make the change, I would say, hey, let's cut the 10 endings. Let's make it 3. Let's make it 3 paths you can go on. You know, neutral, good, and bad, right? And then you get true ending for it. I think that would have made that like a much better game. And you know, that way, like, you know, you distinctively know when you're on the bad path, right? And obviously, you know, obviously if I could fix 2 things, but I'm not allowed to, I would make it so some of the mission requirements are a little less annoying. But that would genuinely be the main thing I would do. I would cut some of the levels that don't work. I'd make it, all right, let's do neutral, good, and bad, and that'll be it. You know, instead of like get 10 different endings, and you could potentially like fuck up one outcome in a level, not be able to do it, so you end up going a different round. Like, let's just make it, 3, good, bad, neutral, get that nice final ending. Kind of like that one mod. There's one mod that I think, makes the game like one timeline, which is pretty good. I think it's like Shadow Reloaded or revamped or whatever. Shout out to that mod. But yeah, I would restructure how, the paths work. Sonic 06, I'd finish it. That's the change I'd make. I would finish the game. Now let's go to Sonic Rush, right? Because I think about Sonic Rush a lot as a person, right? And I think there's a change I would make to Rush and Rush Adventure. I think there are different changes I would make specifically, right? With Sonic Rush, it's honestly just the bosses, right? I think the bosses of that game are a little too slow. They have the same problem like Sonic Superstars does, where like you can only do like one hit at a time, and then you gotta wait for like the boss to do their whole spiel, their whole thing, their whole animations to get the next hit, and you have to do it like 5-6 times. And I just don't think that structure works for Sonic when Sonic is such like a dynamic series, and even like some of the identity of the OG games being able to hit the boss a bunch, and it's supposed to be a little speedy. But so Sonic Rush kind of slows that down to a bit. So if they were like, Fidel, make one change to the game, I would be like the bosses, which funny enough, they make that change in Rush Adventure. In Rush Adventure, you can hit the bosses multiple times. They directly took that feedback into account, right? So, and with Sonic Rush Adventure, it's hard, right? Because there's also, Sonic Rush Adventure, there's many changes I would make to it, but I think the main thing I would change about Rush Adventure would be the vehicles. I don't mind the vehicles being like a thing in the game, but I would have just focused on like 2 vehicles, right, that you can really fully upgrade instead of like having like 4 of them, because it's what, like you have the jet ski, you have like the underwater boat, you have like the pirate ship, you have like there's another vehicle. It's like you don't need 4 different vehicles to get from point A to point B. Just make it so that like maybe one is a submarine and then one is your little jet ski. That way you focus on upgrading them, you end up learning them a lot more, enjoying them a lot more. Like I said, I get what they were going for, but towards the end game, you just kind of end up picking the one that makes the most sense to get to the farthest path possible, instead of needing to be like, oh, I really want to swap between all 4 of these, right? So yeah, I would say that focus on the jet ski, and maybe like, the submarine, and that's it. That's what I would do. I wouldn't even change like the emerald, like the material hunting, because the material hunting is really not that bad. You just replay the levels a few times. If anything, it's a Sonic game. It encourages replayability. So really, it would be the shortening of the vehicle types. Oh, Secret Rings and Black Knight. Those are games that are important to me in different ways. But I think, and I probably speak for most people, genuinely, if I was only allowed to make one change, it would just be like, hey, let's put down the Wii remote. Let's plug a controller. Let's make it so that they can play the Sonic controller. That would be the change I would make, because I have played both of these games with controller support. There's a Sonic game called Sonic and the Secret, I think it's like Project Reignition, right? I've played that on videos on this channel before. Go check it out. And yeah, that version of the game is playable on controller, right? I've also played Sonic and the Black Knight revamped, which is fully on a controller. And genuinely, that makes it so that those games are completely different and so much more enjoyable in different ways, right? I feel like that is the biggest problem with the Storybook games, is they emphasize the Wii waggling and movement too much, and it hinders the experience. But I feel like if those both games, if I was in charge and I could re-release them on controller, I'm not saying they would be like Picasso, but I'm saying a lot more people would enjoy them, especially I think Black Knight. I think Black Knight would be like up there on the echelon for a lot more casuals, because a lot of the hardcore fans like us love Black Knight. But I think in the more casual side, I think it would help a lot if it had controller support. Sonic Unleashed, man, shit. One change I would make to Sonic Unleashed. Tough one, right? Obviously, because it's a game, where the Werehog in general is debatable. But look, I don't want to strip the game of its identity. If they were like, hey, Fidel, you can make one change, I honestly would just make medal requirements much, much lower. I think that is the big thing with the game, is at some point, the medal requirement becomes too high, and then you kind of have to replay the stages over and over again. Not that that's a bad thing, but I feel like sometimes the medals are just in like weird spots, right? So like having no tracker for the medals, or, clear placement for them and stuff can be a little frustrating. There's a mod for Sonic Unleashed Recompiled. I think it's called like Smoother Progression, and like literally if I could take that mod and just put it into Unleash and re-release it like that, it would be much better. You know, I think that's the change I would make, is maybe not metal. I would say, let's do a better progression system, right? Like, let's make it so that you get more XP right off the bat, so that the Werehog has more moves so people can learn it. Make the metal requirements lesser so that people can actually get through the game, you know, instead of feeling like, oh, well, I'm missing way too many medals, I'm not doing this. Progression a little bit smoother in the game, and that's it. Then you have amazing. Oh, Sonic Colors. This is actually an interesting one, because what would be the one change I would make to the game? You know what? I'm gonna be bold, right? I know the easiest thing would be to say the 2D sections. I'm gonna say the story, right? I feel like if Sonic Colors is the way it is, but it had like a really fucking cool story, right? I'm not saying it has to be gritty or anything, but like a very like cool story, you know, to like the, you know, learning about the Wisp with Eggman draining their power, and like maybe, you know, the stakes being a little bit higher. I feel like I would fuck with that really heavy. There's my answers. I would change the story, because I feel like so much of like the revisionist history around the game would change, because a lot of people say, oh, Sonic Colors is the beginning of the 20 whatever people call eras. I don't really care about the naming anymore. You know what I mean? Like the shitty writing era, basically. Not that it's bad to have a funny story, but I would, if they were like, you know what, if I don't make that one change, I would do that. But I guess if they were to make a gameplay change, I would change less 2D sections. I would be like, hey, let's cut down this whole thing where we have like 5 different levels and acts in a zone, and like some of them are like, you know, these weird tunes. Let's make it like 3 acts, right? Focus a little bit more on the 3D. Maybe you could have a side act that's in 2D. And yeah, Sonic 4. Oh, Sonic 4. I mean, there's definitely a laundry list. I guess if I could only make one change, it would probably just be the physics. I would just change it so that you're not sticking on walls or doing, you know, a homing attack. I would honestly make Sonic 4 a classic game, to be honest with you, right? Because it's a weird game where it tries to use modern Sonic for a classic game when it's so clearly a classic game. You know, I feel like if you had just made that game, hey, here's classic Sonic in these environments, right? You know, it's old school. I feel like that would have gone a lot more better than like putting modern Sonic without a boost, giving him a homing attack, having the levels feel really automated. Yeah, I think I would go for, you know, make it a classic 2D Sonic game instead of this weird modern Sonic in classic, which I don't think works. If we're sticking on the trade of 2D games for a little bit, I will say Mania. If I was to make one change to Mania, which I adore, I would probably get rid of Oil Ocean. You know, I would trade Oil Ocean for, you know, an ice cap zone or like one of the casino zones. Like, I don't know. Or even like, I would even take fucking Star, what's the Star area from, I'm a fake fan, bro. I would take like most things over like Oil Ocean, even like Lava Reef. Did we need Lava Reef? I don't know. There's like a level or two of the classics that I would try. I would have even taken a Sky Sanctuary. For as much as that, seeing a Mania-fied Sky Sanctuary would have been kind of crazier. Honestly, another CD level, you know, would have been, well, I guess we already have Metallic Madness, which is fine, you know, but yeah, I guess I would take another Sonic 3 because even like Mushroom Hill, why isn't Mushroom Hill in there? Oh, Lost World, bro. Ooh, is one change enough to fix Sonic Lost World? I guess if I were to make a change to Lost World, like a singular one, I would probably change the speed. Right, I think, yeah, you can hold the boost, and I know, you know, there's the famous video making fun of IGN for not being able to do cool movement, but I would make it so that the speed is emphasized in the first place and encourage you to go really fast throughout these levels instead of it being, you know, a little bit more of a slower platformer. It's weird. Or, you know, obviously, the story is also a big one, right? If I was to make a narrative change, it would be the story for sure. Because I wonder what Lost World would be like if it had a 10 out of 10 story with the gameplay it has. I wonder if it would be favored a lot more. I feel like it gives it a lot of negative points, that it's already a game that's kind of like, okay, and then you have a story that's whatever. But obviously at the end of the day, it's a game, and so if the gameplay was 10 out of 10, the story is whatever, I could live with that. So for me, I would change the speed of the game. I would make it so that it is more like fast-paced movement. Oh man, Sonic Forces, right? I gotta think Sonic Forces. What change would I make to that game? There's too many changes, things to change about that game. So if I were to make one, you know what I would say? I would be like, guys, we gotta cut classic Sonic. As much as, you know, it worked for generations, we got to get him out of here. Let's just focus on like the OC because he has the different weapons at least, and main Sonic, like let's just focus on that. Make more of those levels, make them maybe a little longer. I mean, I guess, fuck, would I get rid of Class Sonic or would I make the levels like regular? Like, you know what? Never mind. I would make it so that the levels are actually like full regular levels, you know, that aren't like 30 seconds long. I would give them a level design team. That's the change I would make. I'd be like, hey guys, let's bring it. Hey, I got 10 people from the internet, even, you know, just to give y'all, to help y'all with these levels. Let's get to work today. Let's get to work. Let's fix this level design. Oh man, Sonic Dream Team. Put it on fucking consoles. Now, Sonic Frontiers. Oh, fuck. This is... Ooh. See, Sonic Frontiers is such an interesting game. I adore it, but there is a lot of little things I would change about it. But if they were like, Fidel, change one thing about Sonic Frontiers, what would it be? Damn, this genuinely is tough. Would it be cyberspace? Man, it could be the physics, but the physics you can already kind of play around with. You know, okay. I'm gonna say it's a basic one. You know, you guys could probably come up with a better one for me. And I know everybody has their own change they would make to Frontiers. I would realistically make it so that all cyberspace is unique aesthetics. I feel like if cyberspace was all unique aesthetics, you know, it would be like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. You're getting this weird digital like level. Oh, you're in this new kind of forest. Oh, you're in this new kind of like arcadey area. Like the highway area in Frontiers is so fucking cool, right? Because it's the original, it's an original level made for it. But then you get like Green Hill Sky Sanctuary and like Chemical Plant like 5 different times. It's just like, come on, man. Like we could do better than that, right? And so, yeah, I would do that. I would make it so that cyberspace is entirely new. Oh, Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, literally the change I would make is I would add a Shadow 05 level. Like literally, that is the biggest like question mark with that game is like, how was Westopolis not a level, or, you know, the Glyph Canyon, or even, you know, whatever the Black Doom level from original Shadow 05 is. Like, it's really weird that that game that is a like celebration of Shadow 05 in some way with Black Doom and the enemies and all that does not have its own level in the game. And I know you can be as smart as to be like, oh, technically, you know, the Arc or however it's called, like is in there, you know. I'm like, come on, now you know what I mean. Sonic Generations. I would change the third half of that game. Is I would change some of it. You know, I would you know what, actually, Planet Wisp. No, wait, the final boss. I would change the final boss. I would make the final boss of Sonic Generations at least something raw, you know, where it was like, holy shit, like maybe you're getting like remixes like from all, you know, the final boss themes, right? Or you got some of the final bosses from each of the games spawning in that you one shot. Like, I would make the finale of Sonic Generations raw as fuck if it was up to me, and not like the Time Eater where you just gotta boost over and over again. Sonic Boom, I guess, as an extra, if I was to change only one thing about it, I'd probably, you know, release it in a good state at least. I guess one more bonus should be like Sonic Battle. Maybe for Sonic Battle, I would kind of try to think, what would I do to that game? I'd fix up the combat a little bit, because my problem with that game is like it feels a little repetitive. Maybe I would fix the campaign. I don't know what you would do, but I would make the campaign a little bit easier to go through. But maybe that's just me being a little nitpicky. But yeah, guys, these are the one change I would make to each Sonic game. I'm sure we have very different answers. So of course, as always, in the comment section below, what is a Sonic game you would make a singular change to that would be a game changer for you? I love you. Thank y'all for watching. You're the best. And of course, I will see you all next time.